of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So, it is the first of the month, as in the first week
Friday
of the month, the first Friday of the month. We're doing a new book, and we are attempting The Cruel Prince by Holly Black.
Yeah.
So I feel like we have mentioned this book and this series on this podcast before, and not in a positive way.
Yes.
But do you want to tell me how you got into this book? Where did you hear about it? Your thoughts?
Yeah. So this is my second read through of this book, as I think it's the same for you. I actually got this book for my birthday from you. I'm like 90% sure you gave it to me for my birthday, the first one. Is that,
probably?
Do you remember that being true? Okay.
Very possible.
Yeah. It's like you get so many books. Yeah, so I got this book, and I had heard about it before. I'd obviously heard about the trilogy. People love it. People are like fucking dies for it.
Yeah.
So I was interested, and for a book that I got for like a gift, I actually read it pretty quickly, because normally I find you have your TBRs, you don't often get to the ones that you get recently. Anyway, so I read it pretty fast, and I actually think I was like maybe 80% of the way through the book, and I just bought the next two. And I was like, yeah, I did it. I went for it. I went hard. And I finished this one and started the next one and was like, I don't like it. So, like, I didn't necessarily dislike this book too much. Like, I liked it a bit. There were some surprises. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll read the rest. Like, I can see this going somewhere. But then I started the second one, and I didn't like the main character at all in the start of the second one, and I just couldn't push past it. I'm kind of hoping this read through, maybe I'll be able to like get some momentum and go into the next ones. But we'll see. I also ended up getting, my niece likes these books, so I ended up getting the...
Like, actually actively likes them?
Yes. We've only read one of 3, so... Also, she listens to this, so be nice.
I am nice!
Yeah, so she asked if I could get the audiobooks of the 3 of them, so I do have those now, so it'll probably be easier to read the second and third one, because I might just listen to them. I would like to finish it, because there are, like, quotes you see, and there's, like, stuff, like, people do about the couple that is going to be, that you're like, that sounds cool, but it didn't hook me as much as I wanted to get me into the second book of the series.
Valid.
Yeah. So what about you? Tell me your story.
So I'll be honest, I feel like I probably bought it for myself the same time I bought it for you.
That's fair.
And, like, again, I purchased it and got it because I had heard a lot about it. It was very popular. It was on one of those tables, and, like, when you read the back, it actually, like, sounds really, has an interesting premise, and, you know, like, it's set in a world of fae that is more familiar to me. It is sort of set, like, they use the more conventional, like, I almost want to say, like, Gaelic, like, Gaelic sort of fae lore. And as you may or may not know, we live in Newfoundland, which is a very Irish sort of has a lot of Irish customs because like 90% of our settlers were from Ireland, and because we are so isolated, a lot of Irish customs and mythology and legends and stuff persisted. So like we have a lot of fae lore that is consistent with Irish fae lore, and this sort of seemed to fall more in line with what I traditionally know about fae.
Yeah.
About the world of faerie, right? Like, you know, putting food in your pockets, wearing your socks inside out, those sorts of things. Like, so it sort of felt like very that.
Yeah.
So I actually really appreciate that about this book.
Yeah.
And, you know, sort of going from, I love Akatar, Akawar, like, you know, Akamath, and just SJM in general, and she sort of made her own rules about like a fae world.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know she's borrowed from like a bunch of different sort of legends and lore, whereas this seemed a little bit more firmly in the sort of Gaelic, Celtic camp of fae. So I enjoyed, I was excited to read about that. And then I read it, and I think I might have gotten 3/4 of the way through. Like, I didn't finish it.
Oh. Well then.
So, I just, like, I find it really hard to root for the main character.
Yeah.
Which, straight up. I don't understand her motivations, and we'll get into this the more. I'll complain as we go. But, like, I couldn't get into her like, I don't understand her motivations. I don't understand why she chooses to do any of what she does. And I don't find her a likable character.
Yeah.
I'm not rooting for her.
Yeah. I found that.
And I feel like.
Was my biggest thing.
And I feel like her origin story is heartbreaking. It's so sad. And I should root for her, but I don't.
Yeah.
And I can't even maybe throughout the course of this month, I'll pinpoint why.
Yeah.
It'll be my discovery.
That's fair.
But as of now, I got nothing.
Yeah. I feel the same way about it. I think I like the writing though, like from so far, what I'm reading. Like I do like, and like you said, obviously, like the folkness of it. Like it really is, an interesting world. And there's actually another series that she wrote that's apparently in this world as well, and I think it might be NA, but I'm not 100% sure what that even means.
Yeah,
like it just might be older characters. I don't know if that means that there's any sex in it or anything. Like no idea. I didn't really want to get too many spoilers, even though I kind of know the spoilers for this series. Not all of them, I guess, but like the main one. But yeah.
Yeah. Now that is one thing that I will say is that I will agree with you. The writing is great.
Yeah.
Like Holly Black, great writer. I'm just not pulled in terms of the characters.
Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can figure it out this month.
Yeah, it'll be our journey delving into why I don't like the characters.
Our journey for June.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I guess just as a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy. They don't.
No.
They get mean.
Yeah.
Not.
This is definitely like an enemies to lovers, like bully. Like, you could call this a bully romance, because I feel like it's a bully romance.
Yes, I would. Very much so.
And do you know what? That honestly could be it for me. Because I also read Zodiac Academy, and I read like the first couple of books of that, which is a super bully romance. And I couldn't finish it. So maybe it's just that it's a bully. Maybe I don't like bully romances.
Yeah. I haven't read many, so I don't really know. I don't think I like bully romances generally either, so maybe that's my issue too.
Yeah.
It also, you know what I hate about bully romances? It perpetuates that when a guy likes a girl, he's gonna tease her and he's gonna be mean and like all this shit that I hate.
Yeah.
So that part does annoy me,
But it also perpetuates this thing of like, hey, if this guy's an asshole, like, I can change him. Like,
yes.
no, he's an asshole. Run far away. Find someone who treats you well.
Yeah.
Don't find someone who's a complete and utter dick.
The one thing about this one that I will give it is I understand why the guy is probably so pissed that he likes her. That's the only thing I can give it, because, like, but, yeah, other than that, it's like, why, I don't know, I can't really say much, because then there's other books I read where it's, like, a stalker romance, and I'm like, yes, love this, big fan. Like, obviously, I don't like that in real life either. Let's not perpetuate stalking. But yeah, fun times. So, obviously, we're doing the Cool Prince.
He's so cool.
The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Holly Black is an American author who obviously wrote this series. It's the Folk of Air trilogy is the name of it. She's also written like a bunch of stuff, I think. Like, it was kind of hard to figure out exactly how much and with who. I looked on her Goodreads and got a bit confused. But she also has another series, the Modern Fairy Tales. And she has a 5-book series by her and Cassandra Clare, who wrote Shadowhunters, and there's an illustrator on it, so I kind of assume like it's like a comic-y series. Magisterium, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And like, we've read all the Shadowhunter books, so not all of them. I guess I haven't read any of the recenter ones.
No, me neither.
So that was a complete lie. Sorry. And she's actually written comic books for like actual comic franchises. Like, she's written for the Sandman franchise and the Good Neighbors comic, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is cool.
And her most recent book is actually the one I was kind of talking about. It's the second book in the Stolen Heir duology, which is apparently written in the same world as this trilogy. And like I said, I think it's NA, but I could be wrong. And I wrote that it's on Kindle Unlimited, but...
sorry.
Oh, you wrote that? I was like, I don't remember knowing that. Okay.
No, The Cruel Prince is on Kindle.
Oh, it is?
The Cruel Prince is on Kindle Unlimited right now, yeah.
Oh, cool. Perfect.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in case anybody has Kindle Unlimited and you don't want to go out and buy the book. It's on Kindle Unlimited for free.
Perfect.
So, because this is week 1, we are starting from scratch, chapters 1 to 10. So, the way this book works, or the beginning works, is we have a man approaching a house. And it says he didn't walk, he didn't drive to get there, and nobody can see him approach the door. So he's mystical, magical in some way. Mm. And then we are thrust into, not really the mind, but like sort of the actions of one child named Jude. Like, Hey Jude, that Beatles song. So Jude is sitting on the couch, eating fish sticks, and her twin sister, Taryn, is napping, sucking her thumb. And it says that they're 7 years old. To be fair, I feel like taking a nap and sucking your thumb is a little bit old for a 7-year-old. Like, a little young for a you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah. She's a bit old to
I don't
be
even
doing
think...
that.
Yeah. But,
anyway. I guess she just fell asleep. I definitely sucked my thumb well past 7.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was way too old to be doing it by the time I stopped, but
yeah.
I
slept with a blankie until I was like 10, so
I still sleep with a shark. So
anyway, so it's the two of them, and they have a big sister whose name is Vivienne, or Vivienne, however you want to say it. And she is watching TV, and apparently she has split pupils, So I'm like, is that like a cat? Like, is that what they mean by split pupils? And furry tips, pointed ears. Like, apparently it's just the tips that are pointy, or that are furry, and they're also pointy. So this seems cat-like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sound
right?
very cat-like. It also kind of reminds me of Shadowhunters, actually, where the warlocks and Shadowhunters have, like, specific things that make them warlocks. And it kind of feels like some of these, like, we don't really get a description of, like, all folk are the same or anything. Like, I don't really... I guess she's half human, though. Yeah, so maybe that's why she's only got certain attributes. Anyway, just interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so apparently Vivienne is different than other sisters, but Jude and Taryn are obviously used to it, and she's just their sister. So their dad is outside at their forge. So the dad has a forge, so he can, like, head on to Forged in Fire if he wanted to, but...
I love that show so much. I want to forge so bad.
It's competition reality TV, so, like, I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
And their mom is in the kitchen making hamburgers. And is it bad that my thought automatically goes to, why is Jude eating fish sticks when her mom is making hamburgers?
Maybe they need to set for an hour and a half.
Ruining your dinner.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a knock at the door. Jude goes to answer it, and it's the man. And Jude calls for their mother, and the mother sees who it is and immediately yells at Jude to go to her room and close the door. But Jude just sort of can't move. She's, like, equal parts, I think, fascinated / captivated and scared of the man, and sort of, like, curious.
Mm-hmm.
But the mother is obviously like, kids, get out of here.
Yeah.
So he starts talking... she sort of gets confused because the man asks, whose child is she? Point, like, to Jude. And the mother says that she's no one's. Obviously, it's her kid, but, like...
Yeah.
And he continues saying that he was surprised to find her here and asks if she knows what it's like to come home from war and find his wife and child dead. And the mother just sort of says that his world wasn't meant for people like her. And the man says that she made vows. And she just said, well, I renounced them. And his response is just what I would expect from a mortal wife. So we're already sort of getting a picture that Jude's mother was married to this man and sort of made her faked her death to run away.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of already assume that maybe Vivienne is probably that child because she's the oldest. So Jude notices that the man has, like, a slightly greenish tint to his skin and eyes just like Vivienne's. And that's when Jude runs into the living room and gets her sisters and tells them they have to go upstairs. I feel like that's a little late, but whatever. So they're on their way when their dad comes in the back door carrying an axe, which is not unusual because he owns a forge and he's frequently making tools like that. Yeah. But he swings at the man with the axe, which is unusual since their dad is, like, super gentle. But obviously the axe misses. And can I just say that knowing what we will eventually know about this man, I feel like this plan was really stupid.
Yeah. Agreed. What else are you supposed to do, though, I guess? Like,
I mean, easily grab the kids and go, like... Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, for those, like, I feel like we're speaking cryptically. We'll find out very shortly that this man is, like, a fae, like, war general and, like, commands, like, all the wars and the armies and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. So, like, obviously he's a very well-trained warrior. Mm-hmm. And then this random dad comes in and tries to swing at him with an axe. Like, that's not helpful.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't know the whole truth.
Very well could be. I don't remember, because I do think they find out a little bit about their dad later on. Like,
oh, yeah, I don't remember at all.
Like, not this week, but maybe next week or the week after. I feel like they do find out a little bit. So, maybe he didn't know. Anyway, so he swings the axe at this man, doesn't hit him. The man then takes out a sword and just stabs their dad in the stomach, and he dies. As you do. Yep. It's fine. Everybody screams, obviously. Mm-hmm. And he tells the mother not to run, not after what she's done. And I'm assuming at this point, like, he expects her to go back with him?
Yeah, I don't really... It seems like it.
Anyway, but she does run, which I also think is foolish. Like, what about your children?
Yeah.
Are you just gonna leave them? Like, what is the plan?
Yeah, I don't get what the plan was.
I
guess anyway, panic is the plan.
Panic, yeah. So she does run, and he slices her with his sword next. And then she dies.
Great.
So there's blood everywhere. And Jude sort of runs up and is, like, hitting the man, but obviously she's 7 years old. He's a full-grown adult, and he is obviously magical, fae. So, obviously, her hitting him has no impact on him whatsoever. He then tells Vivienne that he is her father, and she will be coming back under the hill to Elfheim with him, where she will be his heir and rich beyond measure.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, what a sales pitch, I guess. Like, hi, I just killed your mother and the guy that maybe you thought was your dad or that acted as your dad for your whole life, but psych!
Basically.
Anyway, she obviously doesn't want to go and refuses. And he tells her to pack things for herself and the quote-unquote 2 little humans, aka Jude and Taryn. And that's when Vivienne actually tries to bargain with him, and she says, "Take me, but leave my sisters."
Yeah.
But the man but, like, at the same time, I'm just like, I understand that Vivienne is also only a child. Like, she's only, like, 10 years old, I think.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it. I know she's trying her best. But at the same time, they have no family. So, like, what is Vivienne thinking the 2 kids are gonna do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're just gonna leave 2 7-year-olds in a house with dead bodies by yourself? Like,
it's not funny.
Where do you think they'll go? How are they gonna take care of themselves?
Yeah. It's not a great plan.
No. It's not. Anyway, so she tries to bargain with him and saying, "Take me, but leave my sisters." But the man says, like, "It is my duty to care for my wife's offspring. These were the children of my wife. Therefore, it is my duty and responsibility to take care of them." And he says, "I may be a monster, but I don't shirk my responsibilities." So I may be a monster, but I'm a responsible one.
Good.
So, yeah. So they pack up their things and cry as they are brought to the world of faerie.
Makes sense.
Chapter 1, I actually is funny. Not a funny story. I guess a medium funny story? I don't know.
Yeah.
I literally turned the page to chapter 1, and I thought my book had, like, glitched out. Because it was... There's no TV in faerie. Like, no whatever. It's like one line.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to text it to Catherine and say, "Is this real life? Like, is my book glitched? Am I missing things? What's happening?" And nope, that is literally chapter 1. One sentence, and then we move on. And I don't know if any other chapter does that.
I don't think so. It's kind of funny.
It's just, yeah. Like, not that it's bad. It's just, like, I honestly thought it was a glitch. I didn't think it was real life.
Yeah.
So, Catherine assured me that it is.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Anyway, so just sort of demonstrating that the world of faerie is very different from the real mortal human world.
Yeah.
So, moving on to chapter 2. Tatterfell, which is an interesting name, is an imp who is braiding Jude's hair. And, like, sort of the way she describes it is that, like, she's, like, using her claw-like hands and tugging and being, like, really rough with her.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think was very cool. Like, but, like, the way she sort of describes Tatterfell is very, like, you know, sort of her nurse, like, has been caring for her since she was a child, has been helping her get ready this whole time, and just works in, we finally get the man's name, Maddox's household. So the guy's name is Maddox. And, you know, when she first got to, the world of faerie, Tatterfell has rubbed faerie ointment across her eyes, which gave her the true sight. And I wonder, like, does she have to constantly have that on?
I don't think so. I think it's, like, just once and then you're good.
I'm just thinking about, like, having to walk around with, like, goop on your face all the time. And I'm thinking it's like Vaseline.
Ugh.
Anyway, so she rubbed the faerie ointment on her eyes to make her see through glamours. Tatterfell's the one who made her a rowanberry necklace so that she can resist enchantments, and has been the one to remind her to wear her socks inside out so she won't be led astray by the forest. So, like, has really been her caregiver for these last however many years she's been in faerie. So like, it's 10 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are they like 16 or 17 or something?
They're 17, but it doesn't say it yet. It says it next page. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they are having a chat about the tournament that is happening in 4 days. And Jude is really excited for it because it will bring glory to the general's household, aka Maddox. And apparently all the fairies are constantly reminding her and her sister Taryn that it's an honor for them to be treated as true-born fae, because Maddox has taken them in and is raising them, I don't know if I want to say as his own, but they are treated as members of his household. They aren't like servants, they're not in his employ. Like, they are treated the same way Vivienne is treated.
Yeah.
So everybody constantly reminds them how lucky they are to be treated that way, because, like, they're human. It's an honor for them to be raised with the fae gentry's other children. So they are raised alongside the fae children, even though they're not fae. Jude sort of gives us a clue then about faerie, I guess the world, I want to say. Like, so it's a very common thing that faerie can't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So like, for her, they tend to concentrate on words instead of tone. So they don't understand sarcasm.
Yeah.
So she can use sarcasm all she wants. But I don't understand that, because if you can't lie, surely you would use tone to infer meaning. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't lie, how else would you express your displeasure? If I couldn't lie, I would use sarcasm all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe they just deadpan everything. Like, it... Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but then on top of that, Jude has been here since she was 7.
Mm-hmm.
How many 7-year-olds do you know that are super proficient in sarcasm? My 7-year-old's not.
Yeah.
So, like, if she hasn't been around sarcasm since the age of 7, it's not like she has TB or anything to teach her sarcasm.
Yeah.
How does she know? How does she know how to use sarcasm herself?
Yeah. Good point.
My issues. Those are my issues so far. I've got more coming. So, anyway, Tatterfell reminds Jude that tonight at the dance, maybe someone will ask her for her hand in marriage. And I'm like, without, like, talking to her? Like, is that not how it works?
And
in
why?
faerie? Like, do you just see someone and be like, yeah, I'll marry you? Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, but if she is married to a member of the court, it will make her an official member of the court. So, like, she needs to earn her place. However, Jude doesn't want to marry into the court. She wants to win her place.
Mm-hmm.
So there are only two ways to become permanent members of the court. The first one is by marrying into it, and the second one is by winning your place, usually through the favor of one of the royal families, and usually through this tournament-y thing. Then we get that she's been in faerie now for 10 years and raised by Madoc, who is the High King of Elfheim's general, which I already said. And she's been raised at the estate of Innsmire on the Isle of Might, which is close to the palace. And she thinks that, like, you would think that her being around would be, like, a constant reminder for Madoc of his wife's infidelity. But instead, they're his wife's kids and therefore his responsibility. So she never really felt that, like, the grudge, like the, you know what I mean? Like, never felt angry towards the kids. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So she says that, like, they're treated extremely well. They each have their own room. Obviously, we've learned already that she is Tatterfell, who's, like, sort of like, I'm gonna say her lady's maid, but, like, she has someone to help her dress and get ready. She's always in really beautiful gowns. And Madoc has, like, trained them in fighting, like, sword fighting and all that, like, trained them himself. And Jude thinks back, and, like, when she was a kid, she remembers sitting in his lap, like, eating off his plate, falling asleep to him reading her a book. So, like, she admits that she's grown to love him even after what he did.
Yeah, it's very, like, what else is, like, a...
Stockholm Syndrome.
Well, yeah, and what do you expect from a child who is being raised? Obviously, you're going to gravitate towards someone who's, like, caring for you. But it's a lot.
It's a lot. And that's sort of, maybe that's part of my distaste, is, like, I understand she was a child, so yeah, she's gonna gravitate to someone, but, like, I just don't understand how you can reconcile that in your brain. Like,
yeah.
How do you, and sort of what we talk about all the time, like, how do you reconcile the person that you know and love with the person who does terrible things?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you reconcile that the person that has raised you and kept you safe killed both of your parents in front of you?
Yeah. That's a lot.
I just, like, I feel like you shouldn't be able to tuck that away.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And she does. Anyway, so her sister Taryn comes in, and she's sort of the more, like, lighthearted of the two, I want to say. And sort of the more, like, innocent, the one that wants to escape notice. Like, she just wants to coast by.
Yeah.
And she came in with a proclamation. She wants them to have fun tonight. So they leave Jude's room, and they find Vivi, who's sitting in an alcove reading a comic or, like, a magazine or something from the human world. She is dressed in jeans and a blouse, and she is not going to the party tonight because she is the legitimate daughter of Madoc, and she doesn't feel any pressure to please him or society, and in fact actually delights in angering him. So, like, if he wants her to do something, she will happily do the opposite.
Yeah.
And I feel like reverse, what do you call it?
Reverse psychology.
Yeah. Really, I think that should work.
Yeah.
He needs to look that up and use that on
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be smart.
Yeah. And Jude sort of remembers how when they first came here, they used to huddle in Vivi's bed and reminisce about their parents and their old life, but they don't anymore. And Vivi, like, I didn't comment on it earlier because it was just a line, but at the end of the prologue, when they're all leaving their house with the parents dead and everything, Vivi says that she vows to hate, that she will always hate Madoc.
Mm-hmm.
And she has kept her promise. She has not warmed up to him at all, not like Jude and Taryn have.
Yeah.
And she's been a terror towards him and, like, literally will just, like, break stuff and act out just for the sake of it because she hates his guts.
Yeah. Which is fair.
But, yeah, 100% fair. And that's sort of why I sort of accept her role and her actions better.
Yeah.
But when they were younger, when Jude and Taryn would sort of start to get complacent and start to act, like, happy and content in their life, Vivi would, like, pinch them, scream at them, poke them, like, just get angry with them for becoming, like, complacent.
Yeah.
And Jude sort of thinks that a part of Vivi hates her and Taryn for adapting to their new home.
Yeah.
Which is valid. Like, can you imagine, like, not being over something and seeing your two family members that you sort of hoped would also never be over something, and then they get over it and you're like, how are you over this?
Yeah. I think it's a bit telling of the difference of the species too. Like, everyone always says humans are super adaptable, blah 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 blah. But, like, I feel like holding a grudge, and it's not even a grudge, like, her parents were murdered in front of her. Also, technically, the folk are immortal, I believe. So, like, I feel like holding grudges and not getting over things is much more a trait that they would probably have because they lived for such a long time.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel like it's kind of telling of their different species as well.
Yeah. Anyways, they ask her to come with them to the party, but Vivi already has plans, and they think maybe she's sneaking into the human world for the night. Or for the day, I guess. No, for the night. For the night. So, Jude and Taryn head downstairs, and they meet up with Maddox, and he has a new wife, Oriana, and they're all in the hall getting ready to leave. And I guess Maddox asks if they've seen Vivienne, if she's ready, and Jude tells him, oh, haven't seen her, even though they literally just saw her. But she comments that she likes lying and does it all the time. And I feel like maybe this is just her, like, her attempt at gaining a sliver of control and power when she doesn't have any.
Yeah.
But I still don't like it. Like, you lie all the time, like, lying in general, I don't know. It's not great.
No, but I guess I get where she's coming from. It's the only thing she can do, and they can't do it, so.
Yeah. So Oriana reminds them not to eat, drink, or dance tonight because mortals will dance till they die. Or if they were to dance at a fairy party, and if they ate something, they could end up, like, in someone's thrall, or, like, something bad would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get a little bit of backstory on Oriana, a very small tidbit. She actually married Maddox 7 years ago, and they recently had a little boy named Oak, who is termed sickly, but adorable, and, like, treats Jude and Taryn like sisters, even if Oriana barely tolerates them. So, ugly, angry stepmother sort of situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get on some horses and they go to the party. So Jude then explains to us that fairies are on opposite clocks. So they rise as the sun is setting, which means Jude does as well. Therefore, they are going to the party after midnight. So essentially, they're, like, going to the party, like, halfway through their day. It's an afternoon party.
Yeah. I'm glad that I just listened to you say this, because I absolutely missed this while I was reading. And there's, like, scene. There's one scene, I think it's the beginning of next week, where they're in, like, their class or whatever, and they're looking at the stars, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what time is this class taking place? Makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, so they're on opposite. I don't really understand why they're on opposite clocks. Like, you would think the fairy would also appreciate the sun.
Yeah, I
like,
don't get
they're fairy. They're not vampires.
Yeah, I don't really get it either.
Anyway. So, they show up. Party's in full swing. They're all manner of fae, and they all look beautiful, and they're all super unique, and, you know, whatever. And, like, Jude says that she loves this. Like, she loves the pageantry and the spectacle, and, like, she loves it even though she knows she shouldn't, but she does. So, now we get sort of an introduction into the fairy court system now and how it all works. So, the High King, Eldred, is the grandson of Queen Mab, of the House of Greenbrier. And, like, this Queen Mab is very famous fae in folktales and all those sort of, in lore and everything. So, apparently, Queen Mab lived as a solitary fae, but started conquering lands with her horned consort, aka her horned lover. And because of him having horns, each of Eldred's 6 children have animal characteristics, which they're like, that's slightly weird. But it's not weird among the regular fae, but I guess among the quote-unquote high fae it's weird.
Yeah.
So, that's something. So, the eldest prince, I guess Eldred so Eldred has 6 children. The eldest prince is named Balkin, and he has thorns on his knuckles, and it creates, like, a line of spikes up his arms. And I'm like, how are thorns animal? Are thorns not plant?
Yeah. Also, it would be very hurtful if he punched you.
I agree with you there. Apparently Dane is younger, and he has deer legs and hooves, which I would hate. So he's like a satyr.
Yeah.
No, deer legs. No, he's not a satyr. A fawn?
Oh, yeah.
No, that's goat.
Don't know.
I don't know either. Satyr is... Goat. No, satyr is goat.
Yeah.
So what's a fawn?
A fawn is just a baby deer, isn't it?
No, like, remember, like, Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh.
Mr. Tumnus is a fawn. But I feel like he's got a goat bum, too.
Goat bum. Funny.
Hang on. I need to look this up. I'm sorry. Elaphocentaurs.
Okay.
They tend to have lithe bodies, longer, thinner arms than most, deer-like eyes, a deer-like face, and antlers for the adult males.
Well, she's a thing, I guess.
Yeah. So, I guess that's something. Anyway, that was a fun little side journey into the mystical beast sort of world. Anyway, so he has deer legs and deer hooves, but he only has 2 of them. Yeah. And for a second, I was like, is this guy going to be the love interest? Because that would be really funny if he had deer legs and was the love interest. It's almost, be risque. So, they have a sister named Elwyn, and apparently the 3 of them are constantly at odds with each other. We don't know what her animal trait is.
No.
Right off the bat. I don't know if it tells us later on. So, apparently each of them sort of lead what's called, like, a circle. Like, the way I originally thought about it when it was explained is that, like, they were followers. So, like, if you were, like, Team Balkin, you were called this. If you were Team Elwyn, you were called this, and whatever. However, the way they make it seem is they also make it seem like it's dependent on, like, your station, too. So, like, I feel like I'm not explaining it well enough. So, Prince Balkin, his followers are the Circle of Grackles, which is a terrible name.
Yeah.
But their sort of principal trait is that they all enjoy fun and merriment. So, like, I don't know if, I guess, hang on, I'll explain the other two first. So, Princess Elowin, she has what's called the Circle of Larks, and they value art above all else. And Prince Dane has the Circle of Falcons, and they sort of prioritize knights and warriors. So Matic is the general, so he belongs to that circle. So I guess what I mean is, like, do you join the circle because you follow that prince or princess? Or do you join the circle because that is what you, because what they prioritize is what you prioritize? So, like, if I liked Elowin the best, would I join her circle and then automatically have to be like, okay, well, I guess I appreciate art now? Or would it be more like, well, what do I like the most? Art. So I'll join that one, regardless of how I feel about Elowin. You know what I mean? Like, I
do, but I think it's also, like, they pick who's in their circle. Like, you need to be picked, and they're picking people based on art or warriors. Like,
but I didn't think they were picking everybody. I thought it was just the people that needed to be picked. Like, humans need to be chosen to become a part of the circle.
Yeah.
But, like, if you are just a fae person in the court, I thought you would just move into whatever circle you want.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure. They definitely do choose the humans if humans are in their circles. But for everybody else, I don't really know. Because, like, does the circle, like, do you then live in a certain area because of your circle? So then, like, if you marry someone outside of your circle, are you allowed to go live with them? Like, what
does it entail? And it does not give us nearly enough information on the circles for explaining them.
Yeah, I guess we have a bit of a, like, unreliable narrator in a way that, like, she already knows things, so she's not really explaining enough to us. Like, we are only getting how this circle pertains to her. We don't get how it pertains to anybody else.
That's true. Okay, so Jude and Taryn at this party, they normally find, like, an alcove to hang out in, because they're not allowed to eat, they're not allowed to dance. So, like, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
That's my big thing. Why does Matic insist upon them coming with him when they're not allowed to dance, they're not allowed to eat, they're not allowed to drink, according to stepmom Oriana.
Yeah,
I forgot her name.
Yeah, I had to scroll up.
And, like, they literally hide away in an alcove the whole time. So, like, Matic doesn't even notice that they're not there. So, like, why?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why they have to be there. It doesn't make any sense.
Anyway. So, okay. So Taryn grabs an apple and some cheese from a tray, and Jude sort of explains then that they can tell what food is faerie food that they're not allowed to eat, and what food is sort of regular human food. And she spies another one of the 6, so, like, again, Eldred's 6 children. We've heard about 3. So apparently Jude spots another one, Princess Kalia, and then mentions that Princess It's literally a Y and an I and an A. Rhea? Sure, we'll say that. Isn't attending, which is, I don't know, I guess something.
Yeah.
So that leaves the final prince. The worst one of all. Prince Carden. And he is the youngest. And I guess Jude sees him from across the way, and he is walking towards them, I'm gonna say. So he approaches them, Jude and Taryn. He's got his terrible friends with him. Their names are Valerian, Nicasia, and Locke. Jude, I guess, not Jude, Taryn whispers to Jude that apparently Carden's animal trait is that he has a tail, but, like, he never shows it. He hides it away. Apparently it has a tuft on the end, and it curls like a whip. And I'm like, what the hell animal is that? What is fluffy, but then also, like, I'm assuming, like, prehensile?
The only, like, tough on ends I can think of are, like, elephants or hippos or something. But, like...
If he has an elephant tail, that would be ridiculous.
Well, yes. Yes, it would be. Like, any tail would be ridiculous, but that's...
That's a good point. Anyway, so... yeah, I just don't know what animal that is.
No,
maybe we'll get some more. Maybe we'll see it eventually.
Yeah.
So obviously as they walk by, everybody sort of bows to them. Bows to Carden anyway, and obviously that includes Jude and Taryn. And they sort of keep their eyes low. They sort of don't want to be noticed. So they're walking by, but Valerian grabs Jude by the hair and tells her that he did notice her because she's so dull and ordinary, and he gives her hair like a really hard tug before he moves on. Mm-hmm. Down the line, there is a boy with like moth-like wings, and he does not bow to Carden. So Carden punches him in the face and then rips like one of his wings off. I don't know if he ripped it clean off. Yeah. But he ripped it quite severely.
Yeah.
So, like, he's deliberately cruel and terrible. So, obviously, our cruel prince, right there. So, his friends, like, even his friends are sort of like, hey, whoa, like, dude. But then they all walk on, except for Locke, who helps the boy up. And Jude is, like, staring at this happen, and it's sort of like, whoa, like, dude, I can't believe you did that. And he sees her staring and winks at her and sort of gives her a little smile. And we can safely assume that, like, this is sort of maybe his, like, first act of kindness, like, ever, I guess. I don't really... Yeah. Anyway, so, Taryn sort of, like, is like, stop staring at him. You're gonna, like, make it worse.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you're gonna give them another reason to hate us. And, like, we don't like to pick on us. So she's like, just give it up. Like, don't give them another reason to bother them later on. And she's, like, grabbing Jude's arm really, like, hard.
Mm-hmm. This was kind of the point that I was, like, interested.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
And, we will say we don't really remember everything about the first read of the book, but I remember one thing, and it's interesting in the reread to see Taryn's actions.
Yes. 100%. So, they get home, and Jude sort of reminisces on their evening. And she sort of says that, like, because the fairies can't lie, they just hold grudges instead, and, like, revenge, and, like, they play pranks on each other, and they're just deliberately cruel, because they all are living forever. They're immortal, I'm assuming, unless they are killed, but they are, for all intents and purposes, immortal, which means that, like, unfortunately, like, they're left with a life of, I'm assuming, boredom. So, you know, they're just left to their own devices. Anyway. So she divulges to us that Matic is a red cap. That is the type of fairy he is. So he routinely needs bloodshed. So, like, he has a special hood that he dips in blood after all of his battles, and he keeps it under glass at the house.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's kind of gross.
Yep.
But, I don't know, like, it's just sort of weird. Like, so what does he need with the blood? Does he just need it on his hood? Like,
yeah,
does he need to bathe in it? Does he need to drink it? Like, what about it does he need?
Yeah, we don't really get a lot of information. And it's another thing of, like, this book is it first person? Is that what you call it? It's first person narrated?
I don't think so. I think it's third person.
Third person? Is it? It is. I think it is third person, but it's very much...
It's a third person limited. We're limited to Jude's point.
Yeah, and to Jude's what she knows and her thoughts. So, like, yeah. So I feel like we don't get enough information a lot of the times. We just get little tidbits, which is what she knows.
No, wait, I lied. It is first person.
Okay, so the prologue was third person, though, I think.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Taryn won't tell me what Prince Carden said to her.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, it's first person. Anyway. So she says that sometimes she, like, stares at his hood and tries to feel something, like anything about her parents' death, but she can't. And I'm just like, why? Like,
yeah.
7 is not, like, 2. Like, if she were a toddler, taken with very few memories, I could see this.
Yeah.
But she was 7.
Yeah.
That is not, like, yes, it's young, but it, like, I remember being 7.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my mid-30s, I remember stuff about being 7.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't understand why she doesn't feel sad. You would remember your family.
I think it's trauma, though.
Don't try and explain this away.
No, but, like, I can see her maybe remembering parts of her childhood, or she may have completely blocked it all out because she's just like, it's too sad to think about. Like, she could have, like, trauma really fucks you up, especially when you're a kid. So everything about her, I'm like, yep, that's trauma. 100%.
I guess. Anyway, so she goes to her window in her room and she says she's so tired. And a creature that looks like an owl, but is actually something called a hob, asks what she's tired of. And she responds that she's tired of being powerless. So this is sort of Jude's big, I want to say, her raison d'etre.
Yeah.
It's sort of her character's motivation.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like being powerless in this land that is full of power. So, next evening, she gets ready to go for school. Her and Taryn, they go to school with the gentry. So, no human children have been treated like her and Taryn before, but Matic, like, insists on it, and he's, like, I guess, the High King's right-hand man, so nobody, like, says anything. But, like, everybody despises them, that they're treated this way. Mm-hmm. And she's really clever, and when they go to school, like, she knows all the answers, but the professors, like, don't praise her for it. They don't like that she knows the answers. They don't like that she's smart. They sort of, like, just accept it and move on. And she likes it because she wants to prove that she belongs, whether they want her to or not. And that's just something else I can't reconcile. Why would you want to belong somewhere where everyone actively demonstrates they don't want you there? Why would you want to be somewhere where you are, like, actively hated by everyone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I went somewhere and I knew everybody hated my guts, I don't want to be there.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's all they know.
Fine. I'll accept it. It's just, like...
It is...
just sort of...
It's... I don't know. I feel like part of it, too, is being young, and they're she's like, maybe I can make my life better if I become a knight and everyone will like me then. And, like, they're not going to. That's not going to work.
No.
It's not real life.
It's not. Anyway, so Vivi no longer goes to school. She stopped going because Madoc liked that she went, so she stopped. And she tries to convince the twins to stay home. But their thought process is that if they can't manage the students at school, how can they ever be expected to join the court where the games are more deadly? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I also find it weird that Madoc is just, like, letting Vivi do whatever the fuck she wants. Like, she's just not learning anything. Nope. I guess. That's fine.
It does say, I think, a little bit down the road that, like, because she's long since learned that, like, or he's long since learned that she'll just do whatever he says, the opposite of it. So he's just learned to not say anything.
Yeah.
Which I guess is the best case scenario for him. So.
Not great parenting.
No, but I guess he got what he wanted and she's here, so.
Yeah.
So they go to class actually at the High King's Palace. It's not like typical school, you know, it's faerie school. So, like, sometimes they're outside, sometimes they're in towers. Like, it's very magical. They learn about, like, fae history and, like, magic and all kinds of fun things. They're not, like, astronomy. It's not, like, sit and learn mathematics.
Yeah.
So I guess on their walk, Jude thinks about the tournament, which is now in 3 days. And Jude thinks that she has been trained with a sword. And she hopes that at the summer tournament in 3 days, they will have, like, a mock war. And a prince or princess could grant her favor and give her a place in their personal guard, in their, like, sort of inner circle. Which will give her power and protection, which is what she sort of wants. So that's sort of why she's excited for the tournament. So they go to school. Their lesson is in a field, so they sit on, like, picnic blankets and learn about history. And this week they're learning about Nicasia's history, who is one of Cardan's friends, and how her mother, like, negotiated peace as Queen of the Undersea. So they eat lunch, and Prince Cardan comes over and kicks dirt all over their food right before she's about to eat it. And then Nicasia tells her that dirt is where she comes from, being mortal, so that's what she deserves. And, like, they're sort of urging her to eat the dirty bread, and, like, they're like, come on, we'll leave you alone the rest of the day if you eat it. And, like, she sort of says, like, no, you can't make me. And Cardan says, like, actually, I could. Like, I can ensorcel her. I guess it's their sort of word for mind control.
Yeah.
But they actually are unaware that she is wearing a rowan berry necklace, which prevents her from being enchanted. So, like, I guess she thinks back to how a time Valerian took a silver pen from her and kept it for himself. So obviously she went to Madoc and said, I don't know if she said that someone took, like, Valerian took my pen, or if she just said I lost my pen, or whatever. So he replaced it with a ruby one, like a ruby encrusted one, so it was a nicer pen. And when Valerian saw that, he cracked the back of her head with his wooden practice sword. So, like, they're cruel, terrible people.
Yeah.
So currently, Nicasia actually steals one of Jude's, like, diamond hair clips and asks if she thinks that this will make her beautiful like them. And Jude thinks to herself, like, of course she wants to be like them. Like, of course she wants. And I'm like, why? They're terrible people. Why would you want to be like terrible people?
Yeah, but,
like,
they're
I don't
mortal
look,
and they're fae and they're.
I don't care though.
Yeah, but they're terrible people. Not everybody is.
I mean, the beginning of yours is pretty. Your section, we learned some pretty awful things about randoms too.
Yeah.
They're all feel like just basically cruel.
Yeah. That's what she wants
Anyway.
now.
Yeah. Anyway, so they sort of taunt her that, like, she'll never be like them. And Carden tells her, actually, to stay out of the summer tournament because it's not for mortals. And then Locke sort of pipes up in the background to leave them alone. And Taryn just wants them to go away. So she apologizes for both of them and just tries to, like, have them move along.
Yeah.
That afternoon, because Jude sort of defied them, they play mock war and they trip her up and kick her, and, like, she's got a ton of bruises by the end of the day. And she sort of says, like, what they don't realize about her is that she's been raised by the man who murdered her parents, and she is essentially, like, constantly living in fear since she arrived in faerie. So, like, she doesn't just want to be their equal, she wants to best them. And, like, I can kind of see that a little bit, like, getting revenge on your bullies. But, like, I don't know. I feel bad for her for being treated like shit all the time.
Yeah.
But she also hasn't done very much to earn my sympathy.
Yeah.
And then that makes me feel like an asshole, because I'm like, she shouldn't need to earn my sympathy for shit stuff that's happening to her, so then I feel bad.
No, I get what you're saying, though. She is hard to understand why she does what she does, and that makes it hard to sympathize with her.
Yeah. Anyway, so that night, they walk home, and they always pass by, like, a lake. So they stop at this lake, because their lunch was ruined, so they're starving, so they stop and eat some berries off a bush. And we learned that the lake actually doesn't reflect your own reflection, but when you look into it, you see somebody else's reflection who has looked into it in the past. And apparently when Jude was little, she spent hours looking into the lake, hoping to see her mother stare back at her. Which is actually cute and sad.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that little tidbit. Her sister Taryn asks her to quit the tournament and says that the other students call them the Circle of Worms. And, I mean, sure, like, I don't know. I just feel like they're trying to be something they aren't. Like, they're mortal. What do they expect to happen?
Yeah.
So, Jude, like, just says, like, I want to be a knight. I want to earn my place and be beyond their reach. But Taryn wants to go about it the other way. She wants to find love and get married. So.
Which is just, like, interesting. Like, how. I guess it happens. Obviously, Matic married a human, so it can't be impossible. It can't never happen. But I'm like,
yeah.
Based on the fairies we've seen, I don't think you're going to find love. I'm just throwing that out there.
I just don't understand why a fairy would choose to marry a human over one of their own kind. Especially considering mortals are going to age, they're going to die relatively soon if you're a fairy, right? They've got, like, what? From the time you marry them to the time they die, maybe 60 years, like, that's...
Yeah.
And then by that end of it, they're old and withery.
Yeah.
And wrinkly. So, like, I don't see the benefit for a fairy of marrying a human, unless it gets talked about later.
I can't think of a reason other than love.
And, like, everyone treats her like shit. Who's she gonna fall in love with?
Well, this is the thing. That's why I'm like, it's an interesting situation.
Yeah. Anyway, so they continue their walk home after that, and Taryn mentions that Jude hasn't actually asked Matic for permission to compete in the tournament yet. And by compete, I mean officially compete. So, like, technically any of them can compete in the tournament. But in order for her to sort of declare her candidacy for being chosen by to give favor to her from one of the princes or princesses, she has to wear a green sash during the games, and she has to have permission from Matic to do so.
Yeah.
So she hasn't done that yet. She hasn't asked him yet. So they get home and find Vivi just freaking out because sprites came in and took out her secret stash of, like, human stuff, and they made a mess. And Jude sees a photo of Vivi with her arm around a girl with pink hair. So that's like a little premonition for later. At dinner that night, Maddox tells them that the king is actually soon going to choose to abdicate the throne and choose his successor. So he doesn't have to pick the oldest child. He can pick whichever of his 6 children he wants. And Maddox thinks that most likely it's going to be Prince Dane, who is Maddox's circle leader. I don't know what to call it. And he just says that the king is growing bored and weary, and, like, he's letting small rebellions, like, grow and fester and not, like, stomping them out. So it's time someone else takes the throne so that Maddox can once again fight in the throne's name and, like, sort of crush all those rebellions. But, like, obviously he's immortal. He's been king for thousands of years, presumably. So, like, you know, he's tired. He probably wants to be done. Wants to retire.
Yeah.
Jude then asks him about the tournament, but Maddox sort of tells her, like, she's no killer and she isn't ready for the tournament to officially declare her candidacy and compete. Like, she can fight in the tournament, just not with the green sash.
Yeah.
And he says maybe after the new king's coronation in autumn. And obviously Jude is furious. Like, this was her shot. This was her chance. But she just swallows it because she knows that, like, once he said what he said, like, that's it. There's no changing his mind.
Yeah.
So later on, her and Taryn are getting ready for school, I guess the next day. And Jude said she's tired of being weak. And that's really why she thinks Maddox won't let her compete, because she's too weak to handle it.
Yeah.
And she's tired of being good. And she sort of thinks that, like, she thought if she followed the rules, like, it's not the right way to say it, but, like, things would happen for her. Like, if she followed the rules, you know, everything would eventually go her way. Like, Maddox would let her compete, she would get chosen, she would be protected, and could protect her sister. So, she's just upset. Valid point. However, she is only 17 years old, and, like, if he's saying wait a few months, like, if he was saying wait 5-10 years until we've gone through more training, then I could see her getting fed up, because that's a long time for her to wait. But if he's literally saying, like, it's the summer one, he's saying wait until autumn.
Yeah.
Was that, like, 3 months? 4 months max. Like,
but
that's
she's 16. As a 16-year-old, 3 months is forever.
I guess. Anyway, so...
No, I get it.
Silly. So they go to school, and Carden, Nicasia, and Valerian and Locke are sitting down to eat their lunch. And they take bites, and they spit everything out, like, immediately. And Carden just sort of whips his head over and stares Jude down, and she smirks at him. She salted all of their food to make it inedible. To get back at them for ruining her lunch yesterday.
Yeah. There's something about salt, too. Like...
So, her and Taryn always have to carry salt, and they always have salt, like, next to their plates to salt their food. And, like, I don't know if salt, like takes away enchantments, or if it, like, if it does they're supposed to salt their food to make it safe for them to eat.
Yes. So then I wonder if salt, like, if she didn't even put a lot of salt on it to make it, like, inedible because it tastes salty, if, like, the fairies just can't have salt on their food.
I don't know, because she said it was thoroughly salted.
Yeah.
So...
I don't know. Because I feel like I'd just be able to eat it.
If everything was rolled in salt, like, if your grapes were salty...
I think so.
Oh.
You can also brush some salt off.
That's true.
I don't know. I feel like, well, grapes, you could wash them. Wash the salt away.
But they're noble. They can't do anything for themselves.
That's true. But yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah. So, Taryn is obviously pissed because Jude just declared war against the most powerful students at school that can usually get away with everything.
So, This chapter starts off a bit weird, which is kind of funny because we're obviously changing people. But it just starts off and she's like, here are 3 things I should have already told you about faerie. And the first one is one of Maddox's guards bit off the tip of Jude's finger when she was 9 and basically just told her how much he hated mortals and that if she told anyone like that he bit the tip of her finger off, he would eat the rest of her. So obviously she didn't tell anybody until she's telling the reader.
But, like, no one would notice that she's missing part of her finger? Like,
I know.
How
I
much
found that
is
odd
the
too.
tip? How much is the tip?
I don't know.
Just the tip.
Yes. I don't know what the tip of a finger is. Tip of a penis? Do know. Sorry.
Didn't you just say, like, earlier that your niece listens to this?
I did, yes. Close your ears. Oh, God. Okay. So the second thing, when she was 11, a gentry forced her to drink wine, and she danced until she was terrified and puking, and Princess Elowin found her and had to return her to Oriana. So that's shitty. I would be terrified of living here if all this shit can like make me do things I don't want to do.
Exactly.
And then the third one, which might even be the most terrifying of the 3, is when she was 14 and Oak was 4, he glamoured her to play with him and then to smack herself in the face until basically Oriana showed up and stopped it. And now Oriana's actually like afraid that Jude is like planning revenge in the future because she didn't do anything about it at the time to like get back at Oak.
Yeah.
So
because they're so hell-bent as a species on like revenge and getting back at each other that like they don't forget things for like hundreds of years and then they'll pay people back later. So that's what she thinks Jude is doing, like biding her time.
Yeah, and Jude is just like, I just love him because he's like my brother. So, but yeah, that one is terrifying. She said like she'd just gotten out of the bath, so she didn't have time to put she didn't put her protection necklace on. But yeah, I can't imagine living in a world where someone can just be like, do this, and then you have no control over yourself.
But like, doesn't that then lend to the incredulousness that she wants to be there so bad? Like,
I don't know.
Like, because I'll be honest. Say if I lived somewhere, I was treated like royalty, I had everything I ever wanted, however, I was safe at my home, and really, I just had to worry about being mistreated when I was in public and, like, publicly hated. Maybe I could get through my education. Maybe.
Yeah.
But she doesn't even have safety at home. She's not safe at home. So, like, I don't understand what her fascination is when all she's never calm or safe.
Yeah. I guess you'd get used to it. Like, you'd have to. You have no other choice. But, yeah, it's weird. I don't know why she wants it so bad.
Also, I feel like, again, we've already met the cruel prince. So I feel like we can safely assume who the love interest is in this book. Maybe not. I might be wrong. I haven't read it in ages. However, how does a marriage between a human and a faerie work? Like we already spoke about. So, like, is she gonna marry the prince, be with him for 50 years, and then he'll drop her like a hot potato? Like, or is it only during her pretty years, and in 20 years, he'll drop her like a hot potato? Is there a way to bestow immortality on a human so that they can be with you forever? Because I'm not gonna lie, I don't
It's your
like
most
it.
hated trope. It's your most hated trope.
It really is. I hate it to death.
I know.
So, like, you know.
Yeah, no, I actually think at the end of this week we kind of get a little hint that it may be possible to ask for immortality from.
Okay.
Like there's a little bit there's a thought of it, and I'm like, oh, it seems like that's a possibility. So I think it is. That's what I took from the comment, but I don't know for sure. I guess we'll see if we ever finish the series. Yeah. So those 3 stories, Jude basically says they show how weak and fragile she is, and the thing that she hates the most about herself is that she is weak and fragile and that she is mortal. And even if she can be better than all of the folk, she can never be one of them. And like that, it's just a constant reminder. So, you know, sad times. I don't think they ever really call it school, but I keep calling it school because it's fucking school.
Yeah. It's like lessons.
Yeah. So in school that day, Jude answers questions like correctly all afternoon, which obviously pisses Carden off because everything she does pisses him off. Mm-hmm. And when they walk home, Taryn says it isn't like Jude to pick fights. And Jude just says, like, appeasing them isn't working. So, like, what do you want me to do? Yeah. And Taryn's just like, are you trying to teach them manners or something? Like, this isn't gonna work either. And, like, they both kind of have points, but I don't know, man. Bullying is hard.
Well, I also feel like it's extra hard in this situation because there is such an imbalance in power. Mm-hmm. Like, she can want to get back at them all she wants, but she needs to realize, too, that by doing what she is doing, she is putting herself at risk, her sister at risk, to a bunch of very powerful magic beings that could easily kill her and not be punished for it.
Yeah, once and, like, the literal prince, like,
yeah, he's like, not gonna get in trouble. Maybe even Matic could, like, get pissed off, but ultimately, what's he gonna do?
Yeah. They'll just be like, oh, one of your nuisance humans is dead, who cares? Like, yeah, no one's gonna take him seriously, even if he is mad about it.
And, like, he's literally known them for a blink in his immortal existence. Like, he might care for them, but I don't think he cares deeply enough about them to do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't really seem like it so far, so.
Yeah, like, he might be sad about it, but he's not gonna, I don't think.
Avenge them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Jude actually thinks to herself that she's probably gonna, like, regret doing it later, but she also thinks of, like, Maddox's words, was it last night at dinner, that when she asked if she could do the tournament, and he was like, he said no, but he said, like, she doesn't have it in her yet. She's not a killer. And it isn't just experience that she lacks. Like, he said those words, which, like, really cut her deep, and, like, they come up quite a bit over the next little while of her just thinking about what he said. So she's thinking about that, and a hand clamps over her mouth, and Locke grabs Taryn, and someone grabs her, and they're thrown into the water. So Valerian's one of the people there, obviously, because he's one of the sidekicks, and Valerian says there are nixies, and apparently nixies will push them under the water to, like, drown them and bite them, and, you know, everything awful in life, of course. Carden and how did you say her name? Nicasia?
Nicasia. I don't know.
Fair. Yeah. So Carden and Nicasia are there too, and Valerian empties out their book bags into the water, and she's just like, her ruby pen is just like floating away. I'm like, that's so shitty. I get that they're getting back at them. I don't know. Ugh. I was annoyed. Mm-hmm. That's the part that I was like, that's the worst part, because then everything in your backpack is gone.
Yeah.
That would annoy me the most.
And then, too, like, are they going to have to go home and tell Matic, hey, everything in our backpack is gone? Or are they just going to rifle around the house and look for replacements?
Yeah, and, like, their homework and shit, if they have homework, like, do they have anything like that? Like, there's probably shit in there that's important for their grades and stuff. Anyway, shitty. Oh, sorry. I did not understand what that said. So Carden is just watching. He's not actually doing anything. But Jude asks if he's having fun. And he says, like, she asks if this is fun. And he says, enormously. And Nicasia says it's a game, but sometimes they play too hard with their toys and break them. And Valerian says it's not like they drown them themselves. So, like, they don't care if they die because they didn't actually do it themselves. So I feel like they'd be able to go back and be like, it wasn't our fault. You know, since they can't lie. They could blame it on the Nixies or whatever if they die. Then Jude ends up slipping and ends up going under. And she has to grab a root to, like, stop herself. And when she comes up, Nicasia and Valerian are laughing. And Locke's face is unreadable. And Carden is stepping forward, and I quote, for a better view. Like, is he stepping forward for a better view? Like, this is your first hint that, like, he might hate her, but he was 100% going to jump in and try to save her if she was actually drowning, is what I think just happened then. But she obviously sees it as he wanted a better view of her drowning. So she ends up swimming, crawling, whatever, back to Taryn, who is terrified. And Carden tells them that they should quit school and quit the tournament because they don't belong with their betters. And if they agree to do that, then he'll save them. Jude asks if he'll save Taryn too. And he says, like, oh, you're asking this because you want to feel noble. You want to, like... Yeah, you know, you want to sacrifice yourself for your sister kind of thing. And he actually offers Taryn a deal. If she gets out and kisses both of his cheeks and says, like, no, I don't think she had to say anything, but he says she won't be held accountable for Jude's behavior. And when they were talking about the Nixies, I didn't actually know if the Nixies were real. But at this point, Jude is looking around, and there are actually Nixies, like, looking at them and coming towards them. So she grabs a rock. I was like, oh shit, they're actually in the water. We're not just making it up.
I have to say, though, that I do find that this scene sort of lacks, like, tension.
Yeah, I didn't actually think they were going to die.
Yeah, and, like, it seems like when I was reading it, it almost felt like they wanted the girls to feel, like, deathly afraid. Or at least Taryn to feel deathly afraid. And, like, it just didn't come across. Yeah.
The stakes weren't high enough.
Yeah, and, like, it just was like, really? This is you guys scaring them? Like, you're supposed to be these big bad fairies.
Yeah, if they had just, like, left, they could just crawl out themselves. And if they stayed there, were they just going to stay and watch until, like, the girls fell asleep in the water? Like, I didn't get the stakes either.
Yeah.
So yeah. Jude is looking at the Nixies, but she tells Taryn to do it. But she thinks to herself, it still hurts when Taryn does go to get out of the water. A Nixie actually goes to follow Taryn, but Jude mimes throwing the rock at it, and it stops. So, like, even they're not that scary.
No.
Taryn gets out and kisses Carden's cheeks, and I can't say her name. What did you say it was?
Nicasia?
Nicasia.
I don't know.
Nicasia. I don't know either. So Nicasia then asks Taryn to say that she abandoned her sister and doesn't even like her sister. But Taryn says it wasn't part of the bargain, so she doesn't actually say it. Which I'm glad about, because that would have been, like, a kick in the face. But then Carden just tells Jude that her sister abandoned her with a few words, and they could do much worse. They aren't mortal, and they can glamour her. She's fragile, and she should give up. And she just says never. She's really stubborn. That's a trait that she has. So, you know. He tells her to think on it, and that, like, on her sodden walk home, like, to think about basically what he said. And they end up leaving. And on her walk home, all she can think about is how much she hates them and how much she hates herself and how this world isn't even hers and may never be. You're just like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Go back to the human world.
So I guess later, Vivienne wakes Jude up and tells her they're going to the mall. And Jude tries to say that she, like, can't go and she needs to rehearse for the tournament. And then she thinks of Carden telling her to quit. And she knows that she won't, but she also isn't allowed to, like, actually go into the tournament like she wants to. So it's, like, this whole thing. And she's just like, fuck it. So she gets dressed. And she actually thinks to herself that, like, Taryn was right yesterday about, like, revenge isn't the answer. Yeah. So she knew she was going to feel like that. So she ends up, like, looking in the back of her closet and getting jeans and a sweater. And she thinks of how, when they were young, they talked about going back to the human lands. And they were just waiting for, like, Vivi to know more magic, and they'd all move back together. But obviously, they never ended up doing that. She meets her sisters by the stable, and Vivi actually, like, picks up 3 stalks of ragwort. Ragwort? I guess, like, a weed. Yeah, sounds like. Yeah. And it kind of sounds like dandelions when they turn into puffs, because she, like, blows on them, says an incantation, and they become ponies. Fun. Which is cool. Yeah. And Jude says it's actually not hard to get to the mortal world, and they end up just, like, getting there pretty easily, and they go to the main mall. Main as in the place, not as in Main Street. Vivi changes the ponies back to weeds, and Jude just thinks about, like, how much Vivi loves the mortal world, and Taryn has a lot of fun there, but in the mortal world, Jude feels like a ghost. So, like, is it that she just likes attention even if it's bad?
I don't know.
It's interesting. So they are walking around the mall, basically, and Jude sees, like, these families with children, and she wants to, like, go up to them and scare them. And it makes her feel angry to see them together. And you're like, this is PTSD. Like, she has never been treated for her trauma, and she is, like, she's not actually acting out. She knows better than to do it, but, like, that is her impulse. So, I think it's, like, when she was 7, she was that happy kid with that family, didn't think anything could happen, and then her entire world was, like, thrown upside down. So now she wants the other kids to realize that, like, everything's not okay, because nothing is okay for her. Yeah. It's just, like, obviously she needs therapy. So Vivi tells them both that she brought them there to cheer them up. So Jude actually turns to Taryn and says that she's sorry. And while she's saying sorry, Taryn turns to her and says that Jude is probably mad at her because she didn't, like, help her and, like, left her in the water
lake by herself.
Yeah. And I just thought it was interesting that Jude's immediate reaction is an "I'm sorry," and Taryn's was a "you're probably mad at me." It just was, like, interesting. Jude tells her, like, she doesn't blame her for that, and, like, they had to get out of the lake, like, it was fine. So, you know, that's good. And Vivi actually says that Jude's prank was pretty good, but she has ideas for the next ones that are even worse. And Taryn cuts in that she just needs to ignore them, and that she only did it because she's mad about the tournament. And Vivi kind of says knighthood would have been boring anyway, and like just completely dismisses everything that Jude that Jude actually wants in her life, which is like kind of sad.
But it also just goes to show that like Vivi really doesn't, like, presumably Vivi knows what happened with the water, and knows that like Carden and crew pushed them into the lake, and like knows what happened, right? We're assuming that, right? She's there when when she's apologizing and when Taryn's explaining stuff. So I feel like we should safely assume she knows.
Yeah.
And her thought isn't that these kids are awful to you. Like, you need to be protected. I'm coming back to school.
Yeah.
Which she should and could do. Not should. She could do. But it is, I know how to up the ante. So it's like she doesn't really have any concern for her sister's safety either.
Yeah, but I think that also comes back to like the species and their like need for revenge. Like it really like it is so weird to classify an entire species by being like they need their revenge. But it seems like that's a thing in this book, and like it's a thing that I didn't really pick up on my first read, and I don't even really think I thought of it until like we were talking about it today, but it's definitely interesting. So yeah, Vivi basically just changes the subject then and says that she wants them to meet her girlfriend. And she tells them that her girlfriend asked her to move in with her, and she also doesn't know that like the folk exist. So Vivi just tells them not to mention it. And this reminds Jude of when they were 10. Vivi learned how to make the ponies, and they ran away, and they enchanted a mortal woman to take them home, and like she fed them ice cream, and they were in bed and they were sick at night, and they like Jude and Taryn were crying because they just wanted to go home. But Vivi then took them to a motel where they lived for a week, and then
I think it was 2 weeks, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. They lived for a little while, until they basically begged Vivi to take them home because they missed the food and they were used to their beds and they wanted to be near the magic. So like, I think Jude's biggest issue is that she tried to go there when she was 10 and now she's like, never again. And you're like, when you're 10, yeah, you're going to be afraid of shit, especially if you only have like a 12-year-old taking care of you.
And it was also really sad too, because they were like, she was talking about like what they did, like they remember the smell of like burnt toast in their house with their parents. So like they wanted the house to smell the same, so they made burnt toast and like, you know, all that sort of like they tried to make it nostalgic and make it like their mom made it.
Yeah.
And their dad, but it obviously it wasn't the same
because they're not there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, I will say that was really hard to read, even like because it was just sad. Like there's no way of getting those feelings back.
Yeah. But I do think if she tried to move back now at the age of 17, she'd be better off than she was at. Yeah. Vivi didn't want to go back to the fairyland, but she did it for them basically. She then suggests that they basically all move in with Heather, and they're like, so your girlfriend is fine with your two twin sisters moving in with you and her? Seems wild.
She seems like a very understandable person.
Yeah. Which, like, I guess if you were dating somebody at 17 and they had, well, I guess 19,
20,
whatever.
Think.
20.
I think she's 20, yeah. Or, yeah.
Yeah. And she had two sisters because her parents had died when they were young. You'd be like, yeah, until they can get on their feet or whatever. But Jude just responds like she can only swing a sword and make up riddles, so she can't. And I'm like, I couldn't do anything at 17. I could make coffee. That's all I could do. Like, nobody at 17 can do what they're going to do for the rest of their life, just because that's, like, you can work at a coffee shop with all those skills. She can work at a Ren fair.
Oh my god, I think that would actually be a great fit for them.
Yeah, right? But Vivi says that, like, they grew up here and that they're treated like shit in faerie, so they should want to move, basically.
Yes.
Which is, yeah. And Vivi's, like, annoyed with how they want to stay in faerie because she wants to live in the mortal world. But Jude kind of thinks, like, she had, like, Vivi actually had her childhood in the fairy world and, like, in the mortal world, sorry, and there's, like, they didn't have enough time there to actually want to go back, kind of thing. And I'm like,
7 years old is a lot of time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not as much as 10, but it's still time.
I just feel like there's not that much difference in those 3 years. I don't know. I don't remember anything before 12. So I'd be fucked if I was either of them. That's not true.
Can I just add, though? So, like, what was Vivi? Was Vivi going to school, I wonder? Like, regular?
She must have been.
Like, but she had weirdo eyes and a weirdo ears. So, like...
So could you not see it if you didn't have the, like, goop Vaseline in your eyes? Like, obviously her sisters could see it, so I don't...
could see it.
I don't know.
So the goop,
but
I don't think...
Why doesn't Heather know?
Oh, shit. But, well, she's probably old enough to glamour herself now.
I guess.
She didn't know how to glamour herself at the age of 10. She didn't know.
Maybe she was homeschooled. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Are we gonna get answers on this?
I highly doubt it. I doubt there's, like, a prequel about them as children. So they end up meeting Heather, and she is like outside of a coffee shop or something, and she has pink hair and she has a shirt that has, like, drawings on it. You can tell, like, it's kind of, like, handmade, and that makes Jude wonder if the comics that she saw Vivi reading earlier in this book were written and drawn by Heather. And she also has dark skin. So Jude shakes her hand after, like, being mid-curtsy and realizing, shit, that's not what you're supposed to do. Which is just so awkward. And Heather actually calls Vivi V, which, like, shocks Jude and Taryn. But then Jude is just like, Vivi, you promised us coffee. So they all go to a coffee shop and sit.
It's, like, my favorite part of this entire thing.
Vivi actually, like, walks away for something, and Heather asks the twins why she can't meet V's family, when apparently Vivi has been, like, spending lots of time with her family. Like, they're ready to buy a toothbrush for her, basically. And
Aww.
It's sweet. But Jude says that their dad is very conservative, and Heather asks if he knows that V is bi, but before either of the girls can answer her, Vivi comes back. So Jude actually thinks, though, that, like, liking girls and boys is the only thing Madoc wouldn't be upset about this whole situation, which is just kind of funny. And a good, a good pop out, a good call for Pride Month.
Yeah. Yes.
And and representation, yes. Yeah. But also, it is Pride Month.
I just want to add in, though, okay, so back when the kids were, like, 10 and... Was that when they escaped? When they were 10?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
And the girls were 10, so Vivi was, like, 13.
Yeah.
Did Madoc not come looking for them? They were gone for, like, 2 weeks.
I know. I was expecting her to be like, and then we came back, and he was angry and locked us away or some shit.
Yeah.
But we don't actually hear what happened. I kind of wonder if, like, he was away on a mission or something, and, like, Oriana just didn't tell him. Like, they came back eventually.
That's true. Although that is around the same time that he married her. Right? Because he's been married to her for 7 years.
Might have been on a honeymoon.
They're 17. Unless he married her to keep eyes on them while he was gone.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like he's capable of love. So,
but I mean,
just
like,
possessiveness.
What did he do with the? I'm sorry. If you are an immortal being, there's no way you can offer to marry a mortal if you don't have strong feelings for them, right? Like, why else would you do it?
I know. But I don't know. It's weird. But yeah. So, yeah. I guess Vivi's bi, which seems like it's a common thing in faerie. So.
Well, yes, yeah.
Which, you know. I always go back to my argument that, like, if you become immortal, you're just going to end up bi anyway. It's a mostly joking argument, but if you're alive that long, what else are you going to do? So yeah. They end up, like, walking around the mall a bit, and a guy smiles at Jude, and she's just, like, kind of confused, and she wonders if, like, the guy knows Heather. And she's like, okay, whatever. Yeah. After Heather leaves, Vivi thanks them for lying, but Jude says she needs to tell her the truth at some point. Like, does she really? I don't know. Like, I guess when she doesn't age, but she can glamour that shit. Jude goes to buy tampons then before they leave, and she's like, every time she comes to the mortal world, she does that. Folk do get their periods, but they only get it like once a year, and they don't use tampons, so makes sense. The same guy that Jude saw before grabs her arm on their way out, and he says, hey, sweetheart, and like goes on to say something else, but she like punches him, and then she kicks him, and he starts to cry, and she like wants to keep fighting, but she just realizes, oh shit, this isn't a fight. He's just trying to flirt with me, which is like so awkward. One of his friends like runs after her and calls her a bitch, and then they like start running away from him, and then Vivi puts a pixie lead spell on him so he can't find them unless he puts his clothes inside out, which obviously he's never gonna do. So like, pretty cool spell. I want to know how to do it. Vivi actually tells Jude that Maddox would be proud of her, of the way she acts. And Jude thinks to herself that she feels better than great. She feels nothing. I'm like, that's not what better than great is. That's disassociation. That's like, it's not great. But she says this is why she can't live here, because she doesn't see herself as mortal anymore. She obviously sees herself as too feral. I don't know.
But you would learn. Like, she already understands, oh, he was flirting with me. Like, that she immediately was like, oh shit.
I made a mistake.
Yeah, because she immediately did that. I feel like the next time, she'll recognize it.
Yeah, but can't. That's it. So at school the next day, she's still thinking about like how she felt nothing and like how that felt good. And the tournament is tomorrow, and her and Taryn actually climb up a tree to eat lunch, I guess, so that nobody can pick on them. And another student, I assume, Fand, comes over and asks why Jude wasn't at rehearsal. And Jude just says that she forgot, but she'll be there tomorrow. Even though, like, Taryn's looking at her like, tell her you're not going to do it. Like, cancel, you're not allowed. Even though, like, she's allowed to be in the tournament. She's just not allowed to wear the color.
The green sash, yeah.
Yeah.
She's just not allowed to declare herself as open to being claimed as a member of the court. Yeah.
I guess Taryn wants her to not do it because Carden wants her to not do it. But it's like, she's allowed. Like, Maddox's fine with her.
Can I just say, though, I feel like she has not given enough thought to what she has to do after she is employed in the service of the princess.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, she's just thinking about, once I'm a knight, once I'm in someone's circle, I'll have power, they can't touch me, blah, blah, blah. But, like, she's not thinking about sort of Maddox's point. She's not a killer.
It's exactly what he was saying.
If the prince or princess she works for demands that she go murder somebody, she is obligated to do that.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like this is sort of where her age is coming into play here, and sort of where I agree with Matic, sorry.
Yeah.
Where I agree with Matic at this point, because, like, she's not thinking about her roles and responsibilities after she gets into a circle. She's just thinking about getting into the circle.
Yeah. Which, like, she is 17. Her prefrontal cortex isn't completely. So, like, I'm not surprised that she's not, like, thinking, she's like, step 1, we can have lots of fun. But yeah.
Step 2, there's so much we can do. Step 3, it's just you and me. Step 4, I can give you more. Step 5, don't you know that the time has arrived?
Yeah. It's where we are. So now you know a bit more how old we are. So after class, Taryn is actually crying near Carden, and Jude is just filled with rage and goes over and shoves Carden. And you're like, yee, you can't just shove a prince. Like,
I mean, she can, because she just did.
Well, yeah, but he's just, like, annoyed. But she just says, like, she obviously doesn't know what he said, but to never go near Taryn again. And he gave her his word that he wouldn't hold Taryn accountable for Jude's shit. But he tells her that she's going to regret doing that, but she thinks he doesn't know how angry she is, which is another characteristic of her. Later, Taryn won't tell her what Carden said, but says it has nothing to do with Jude, which is just, like, interesting. We're, like, getting a few tidbits here of something else is on the go with Taryn. Jude actually, like, looks at Taryn, and, like, they're twins, and I'm assuming they look alike based on what she says next. Because she says Taryn looks pretty and like a girl in her own skin on, like, her. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they look like, I'm pretty sure, but I don't know. Jude kind of tries to make Taryn tell her what happened. But Taryn actually says that she could probably bear it all better if Jude didn't see it sometimes. And it makes her not like Jude that she's always there to, like, witness these moments. Which is kind of a shitty thing to say. And Jude even says, like, that's not fair. And Taryn says she knows that. But what Carden said doesn't matter. So, you know, it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Just to reassure, they are identical twins.
They are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They share long, red-brown hair, described to be the color of a willow tree, and softer features in comparison to the fae, such as their heart-shaped face.
Gotcha. Yeah. Taryn says, like, they both need to pretend that it didn't happen. And I'm like, but I want to know what Carden said to make her cry. Like,
yes. And, like,
we can't just pretend it didn't happen. I, the reader, would like to know.
Yeah. And also, did what he say make her cry? Or did she cry and he said something?
Yeah. We really don't know what's going on with Taryn, but obviously there's something.
And whatever it is, we know it's going to be shitty.
Yes. Jude thinks that, like, whatever happened this afternoon has nothing to do with her. So she believes Taryn, which is, like, I guess good. Like, I was like, that's a leap that you're just assuming she's not lying, but sure. But it makes her realize that, like, Taryn got into trouble all on her own. Taryn tells her to fix things with Carden because he's a prince and he has all of the power. And you're like, yeah, it's true. It's shitty, but it's true. And she says, like, you need to before you get really harmed. And then Taryn begs her to do what he asked at the lake. And even if it is just lies, to like just quit the tournament and not fight tomorrow. But Jude's just like, she can't do that. Jude knows she should be on Remarkable tomorrow, but she also knows that like that's not in her to do. She wakes up the next morning and like puts her battle clothes on, and she sees Maddox, and he tells her he knows what it is to be young and hungry for glory, but like this is for the best, to like wait until next time. So she takes a horse to the tournament, and there's a crowd, and there's like a royal suite there, and she sees their like, I guess there's flags with the king's symbol on it.
Right.
And it's a tree that is half white flowers, half thorns, with roots and a crown. And it's uniting the Seelie court, the on-Seelie court, and the wild fae under one crown is what it represents.
Amazing.
So is there a correlation between those three and the three different, like, circles that exist?
I don't think so. Because I think there's more than just 3 circles. I think each prince or princess has one. I think it's just, those are the 3 we mentioned.
Okay.
As
Taryn doesn't have one yet.
No, but maybe it's just because he's the youngest.
Yeah. You probably, maybe you get it when you're, like, done school or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know nearly enough about these circles.
No. So Jude is looking at Princess Raya. Sure. And she's surveying the combatants, and Jude is frustrated because she wanted Princess Raya to choose her as a knight, but she does think maybe Maddox was right, and maybe she can't, like, actually kill somebody yet. Which you're like, yes, 100%. She decides if she doesn't try too hard, at least she'll never know if she was good enough or not. So that is kind of what she's deciding to do. Her group is first because they're the youngest, and they actually use wooden swords, and there are 3 rounds of mock war, and they each have to protect a hide, and it's basically like every other fantasy book, capture the flag.
Yeah. So original.
Yeah. It's always capture the flag.
Yeah.
So during the first battle, Jude doesn't go near Carden or his crew, and she just fights defensively. She doesn't actually, like, actively go on the offense. And they lose. And then before the second one, Carden comes over and calls her out for it and asks if her sister told her not to try. And he tells her Taryn wants faerie approval so bad she would roll with him in this dirt, then thank him for the honor. And he wouldn't be the first to green gown her. Yeah. So,
I guess, are we suggesting and assuming that she is no longer a virgin and has had sex with somebody?
That's kind of what it seems like.
But, like, when are they ever apart?
I don't know. I guess Jude practices a lot more. Like, she's always fighting, and like, so maybe they're apart more than we think.
Maybe.
So Jude obviously gets pissed. She knows that Carden wants to hurt her, and the only thing she can do is make him want to hurt her more, is what she's, like, come to the conclusion. And I'm like, that's not a great conclusion. So she goes hard for the next 2 battles. She ends up with a black eye, and she skins her knees, but they win battles 2 and 3. And she feels at the end of this like she actually could be a killer.
Oh, come on.
So after the battles, she looks to the crowd, and Maddox is gone. She did her best, and she realized, like, nobody noticed, and Maddox didn't even bother to stay. So she feels shitty.
Yes.
Makes sense. Carden is waiting for her and grabs her by the neck and hair and tells her she is mortal and defined by the fact that she will die, which is like their only thing that they like. They're like, you're immortal, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like,
makes them no better than worms in the dirt, I guess.
I know, but I'm like, it's so, I don't know. There has to be something else that you can bitch at her about, like. But no, that's it. Then he tells her to beg his forgiveness. He says he will hurt her until there's nothing left if she doesn't. And she actually starts to kneel down, and she decides, like, she can just say the words and not mean them, kind of like Taryn said. But as she's, like, going to kneel down and do it, she realizes she can't. And she says he thinks he can control her with humiliation, but he's an idiot. And she's done making herself small. It didn't work anyway. And he was still a dick, which is true.
Yeah.
So now she's going to keep defying him. And he is a prince and she's a mortal. So he has much more to lose than she does because she has nothing to lose. And she promises that whatever he does, she will take everything she can from him on her way down. And Carden just, like, is standing there in shock. Like, what the fuck? Because he did not expect that. And she just walks away. And she doesn't look over to her sister, who is standing next to Locke. But she does see that, like, Valerian is pissed. And Nicasia is, like, open-mouthed and, like, shocked that she said it. Locke actually follows her and asks if she's all right. Which is interesting. Like, he's showing some signs of being decent.
Yeah, I don't...
We also know what happens.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
Yeah.
So confused by him.
Yeah.
Like, why is he doing any of this? Do we find out?
I think it was all just a prank, wasn't it?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. It's the twins thing. Fucking hell.
A good twin and a bad twin?
No, I mean, like, men's obsession with twins.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, yeah. Locke says to her that it's funny the way she gets under Carden's skin. And she asks if he means like a splinter, and he says an iron one. And he actually kneels down in front of her and cleans up her wounded face. And she studies him as, like, he's doing it. So she's just, like, staring at him. And they share a smile. And it's kind of like that moment that they had at court where he winked at her. And he actually tells her to keep it up. To, like, keep it up with Carden. And you're like, okay, aren't you his friend? What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
She goes back to the crowd and she tries to catch Taryn's eye, but she's ignoring her. And she wonders what Locke said to her while she was bitching out Carden, and if Taryn is mad about what she said to Carden, which, like, obviously she fucking is. And she also wonders what Carden meant by not being the first to green gown her, because she knows that Carden can't lie. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, in other words, Taryn has had sex with someone.
Yeah. We're assuming that that's what green gown means. But, like,
what else would it mean besides making, like, grass stains on your dress from
exactly
sex?
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Oh my god, side note.
Yeah.
When we were doing Romeo and Juliet, I had to explain what a maidenhead was.
Oh no.
And
that's
like
Akko.
In one of the scenes, Juliet is like complaining about how long the day is and how she can't wait for night to come, and like, oh, amorous night, and like just keeps going on and on, like has a really huge soliloquy about how she really wants the day to go away so that night can come. And I'm like, the kids are like, why does she want night to come so bad? And I'm like, so Romeo can come visit. But then they're in grade 9, so I literally just go, he's, because when I try and say they like are coming to consummate their wedding, they don't understand what that word means, consummate.
No.
So then I just have to be like, bow chicka wow wow.
Romeo, well, all Shakespeare really is like, we learn it in school, but he's like very sex
forward. Yeah, he's filthy.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just funny that people are like, this is the stuff that we're teaching our children, and you're like,
oh yeah.
If we're really teaching them to understand it, then it's all sex.
Yeah, like all they do, all in the whole play, they say it like 5 times about taking out their naked weapons and bandying it about.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, great, so they want to take their penises out.
Bandy them.
And bandy them. It's like helicopter.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Sorry, continue.
All good. So, Vivi toasts Jude then and says she reminded the folk why they hide from mortals, which is interesting. And Taryn says she wishes Jude was a bit less clever. So, like, clearly she's pissed about what she says. Princess Rhea actually goes to fight, and Carden is in the box with his family now. And I guess Jude is kind of watching, because, like, it feels like Princess Rhea is, like, an idol. Like, obviously Jude is enamored by her. Later, Vivi and Taryn go hunting with Princess Rhea in the woods, but Jude goes home because she's just too tired. And she gets a snack and goes towards her room, but a servant stops her and tells her the prince is waiting for her downstairs. And she's like, fuck. She's like, Carden's here, and I need to get rid of him before Maddox comes home, or Maddox will hear them basically yelling at each other and being bitchy towards each other. So she rushes into the office with a tray, but it's actually Prince Dane. And she kind of wonders if Carden sent him. And he asks her who she thought he was since she stormed in, but she says no one. And he asks if one of his brothers is bothering her, and she says no. And he says it's shocking. He knew humans could lie, but watching it is incredible. And he asks her to do it again. And I just kind of love it.
It's like a parlor trick.
Yeah. So she actually lists off a few things about herself. She's like, my name is Jude. I like this, this, and this. And she's like, tell me which part of that was a lie, if any of it was a lie. And she's like, the good thing about being able to lie is that you don't know if I'm doing it. Which is just an interesting concept to think about, like, if people could not lie.
Yeah.
But anyway, he is impressed by it, and he asks how her father uses this talent, and she's just confused. And he realizes that, like, Maddox doesn't use it, and he obviously thinks that Maddox should. So he asks what she dreams of, and she's just like, what do you mean? And he just says, like, what do you want? And she says she wants to be his knight.
But, like, I thought she wanted to be Rhea's knight.
She just wants to be anybody's knight, to be part of the court or whatever.
All right.
But he says that's unexpected and pleasing, and he asks what else. But she's confused because, like we said, like, she's very much like, that's the only thing I want, nothing else ever. And she's just like, that's it. And he's like, no, like, think about it. And she thinks, like, she no longer wants to be mortal. But then she's disgusted by that thought. And that's kind of the moment I was like, so is it possible to ask to not be mortal? Like, that's what I kind of took from that. Like, could you somehow? Yeah. But she actually says she wants to be able to resist enchantment. And he lists, like, all the ways that she already uses and knows how to resist them. But she says she wants it to be permanent. And he tells her to come over. And he tells her Carden is spoiled, and he is not, like, Prince Dane is not like Carden, and he will not be cruel to her and delight in it. And he wants her to be sworn into his service, but not as a knight. He wants her as a spy. And he asks her to join the Court of Shadows, which I guess is his court, and he will make her powerful beyond what she can hope, and he'll make her life easier. And she kind of thinks to herself, like, it feels like if you're expecting a marriage proposal from somebody and then you're asked to be a mistress instead, because, like, she wanted to be a knight, she wanted to fight, she wanted the honor.
And for it to be public, too, right?
Exactly, yes. And now if she's a spy, nobody's gonna know
yeah,
that she's more than human. So, you know, he also promises that, like, once he's king, she'll be able to do as she pleases, and that he'll put a geese on her to protect her from enchantments. We get now that geeses grant power, but usually there's a catch. So she asks about the geese, and he says it can't protect her from fruit or poisons, but it will protect her from, like, people enchanting her directly.
Right.
And he offers to give her one so that all who look, like, he offers to, instead of the one that she just asked for, to give her one that, like, anyone who looks at her falls in love with her, or to give her a magical blade, or, like, anything else she wants. But she's like, nope, I just don't want to be controlled magically. And she says, like, if he gives her that, she'll accept. So he's like, yes. So he gives her a geese that no one but him can addle her mind. And she swears herself into his service. And she has a moment where she's like, there's the downside of the bargain. Of course he's going to, like, have something bad. And you're like, obviously he's going to make it so you have to, like, obey him.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be dumb if he didn't. But yeah, that's our week.
I love it. I don't hate it, I guess, as much as I did the first time round. But I don't love it.
I didn't expect anybody to notice a lowly human, you know? Like, I didn't expect, like, the prince that is about to become king to actually come up and be like, hey, Jude. Get it? Hey, Jude.
Yeah.
Will you be my spy? I was like, oh, this is taking a turn I wasn't expecting. Like, I just was like, I don't know. Didn't think that they'd actually care.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So, we are going to wrap it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions for us, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com, or on Instagram, Facebook, at Coffee and Co-Read, or coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week, we're going to be reading chapters 11 to 17 of The Cruel Prince. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.